Hi guys, I know it's been a long time since I gave a full painting tutorial, so today I'm going to be doing that. And in front of us there is the picture of a peacock butterfly. I have it in the descriptions. It's from Pixabay, and so anybody can paint it. So if you would like to paint along, you can go to Pixabay, download the picture, copy it, and we can paint. So you're probably asking me, is this painting suitable for the beginner? And I have to say, for the beginner, no, it is not, because the two brushes I'm using for the entire painting are quite small. So this is a silver black velvet size 4. I'm going to get quite a bit of detail with that. But actually, this nail brush, it's a 00 if you're looking for a size, is even finer. And beginners don't usually start so fine. Also, I'm going to be painting wet in wet and using layers, and this is something else that beginners don't typically do, but I'm going to be giving very clear instructions, step by step, all the way, so anybody can try to paint along. Not try, anybody can paint along. Okay, so what are the materials that we need? Obviously you need the picture, and then you've seen that I've already transferred the picture, and I just used graphite to transfer it because I don't like carbon paper. It leaves a really dark color and I don't like that. So I've transferred the picture. The paper that I'm using is the Artistico Fabriano. It is extra white or any white. It's hot press. This is so that I can get layers and paint wet and wet. If you use cold press, you won't be able to get quite the layers, and if you use rough, it will be very difficult. So you'll need the paper, we have the brushes. I will be using a touch of this liquid Ecoline watercolor. It's kind of like an ink. And if you have gouache at the end, that will work fine. I just prefer the ink. I get better coverage. These are the colors I will be using at the very end to just touch up some of the paint colors. And specifically, I'll be using champagne gold and white gold. So this is a Gansai, the Kuretake Gansai. As for the colors themselves, I'm using Daniel Smith, but I'll show you the colors because maybe you don't have Daniel Smith. You'll find something comparable. So my first color is going to be, this is Payne's Gray, and you can see it's really dark when I first lay it down, but it dilutes out very nicely. Another color that I will be using is the Indanthrone Blue. Again, it's very dark and it dilutes out very beautifully. This is such a beautiful color. I'm going to use a lot of this. I will also be using the Phthalo Blue, and it's very bright. This is going to be just for the inside of those peacock eyes. I will also have a red, but I'm not going to use the red directly. I'm going to mix it with other colors because this red is just too bright. But this is Perylene Red. And this one is my Pyrrol Orange. This is an M-gram, but I love it because it's very, very vibrant. I'm going to be mixing these two colors a lot and glazing with the orange at the very end, and that will make our butterfly wings look very, very bright and beautiful. The last color for the butterfly is the raw sienna. Now this color is essential because it has very heavy pigments. When we paint wet into wet, I'll have some liquid. I will drop this in. You can see it doesn't travel that much, but the red and the orange travel a lot, so this will slow down those colors from traveling a lot. So that's just a little tip for when you're painting. Now I'm going to have some flowers here at the very end, and you can choose any colors that you like, but I am going to be using, perhaps this is my Quin Gold. This is my Quin Gold. Another color that I might use is the new Gamboge. This is a beautiful color. And the last color is the Hansa yellow. So I don't need all of these, but those are going to be possibly the colors that I will paint for just a few, yellow sprigs after I paint my butterfly. I think that covers what we need to set up our painting. Oh, one other thing you're going to need is clean water. And you can see that I've already used one of my water dishes for rinsing my brush, and I'll have another one for bringing in fresh water. So let me go fresh in this one, and then we can begin. Okay, so I'm taking my larger brush right now, and I'm going to paint in just water. And where am I going to put in the water? Here is our image. And we have the eye of the butterfly wing. We have 4 eyes. So we're only going to paint wing by wing because we can't manage wet and wet to paint all 4 wings at the same time. So we'll paint around this eye, around this black area, the white area, and the black. So all of the wing except these 4 little areas. And we'll just get those damp, and then we will start dropping in our paint. And you should have a very fine brush for some of this area along the edge here. So I'm just dropping in water, being very particular along the edge of this wing. Wherever you put water and then you drop in paint, that's where your paint's going to travel. So you do want to have a very neat edge. You don't want to make it sloppy. And so I have a line where I'm not going to be painting just yet. So this is my eye, my black, white, and black. So I'll just paint around those areas. And this is a little dry, so I'm going to paint that again with water. Get it damp. I'm just putting a sheen of water, not too much. Just a light sheen, and it's soaking into the paper. So get my edge nice and smooth. Okay, so now we can look at that. That is our wing that's been dampened. This is our raw sienna. You can see I've diluted it quite a bit. Put a little bit more water in that. Let's test it out. Oh yes, it looks nice. So I'm just going to drop it in right on along the edge. It's going to paint the paper. I'm not going to paint the paper. I'll let the pigments do it right now. Let them travel. If there's little gaps here, fine. That'll be great. It'll add texture to our wing. Now you see I have this line here. Hopefully the water isn't going to carry the pigment too much beyond. If it does, we can lift it out. Now I'm going to start at this end and put in some more of the raw sienna and just let it paint the paper. And if I do a line, you can see that I'm not leaving much pigment. So that's why I do dab it. And this is going to travel more, so I'm going to stop dabbing right there. Yes, that'll be fine. Now we're going to go and get our reds and our oranges. Make sure we have that. And dilute it just a bit. Not too much. I probably should. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to drop in, starting only at this end. Now this stuff travels, so I'm not going to put in tons. And I'm not going to go beyond this because it'll keep going, it'll keep traveling. We can always add more color later. And now I'm going to add in some orange. Let those colors kind of bleed together naturally. And that will be fine. And they'll probably continue to bleed. Okay, so let's come back here and we see that our wing is looking pretty nice. I like that. So let's put in a little bit more raw sienna. Now this is neater. Neat means without much water. It's pretty much straight paint. I do have a little bit of water in that, and I'm just going to touch it on the edge just to get a little bit more intensity there. I like that. Okay, and so let's dry our brush. I'm just wiping it off. Still it has quite a bit of water in it. And I'm going to drop in a little bit of the Indanthrone Blue. I'm going to have to put a little more water in that. And I want this Indanthrone Blue to bleed out just a bit. Right now it seems like it's really dark, but it will dry lighter. And that's enough. Just want that nice transition of color up there. Let that dry a little bit. And this right here is really ragged, so I'm going to go and fix that while it's still a little bit damp. That looks much better to me. Okay. Things are fixable when they're still damp. And we're going to put in another layer, so if yours looks a little sloppy, that's okay. We will fix it later. So now I'm going to go and pick up some more of the Indanthrone Blue. And this is more concentrated. This is still quite damp, so I'm just going to add a little bit more just to let that intensity color the paper again. You'll notice I'm not adding a straight line. We're not outlining that entire wing. We're just putting in some color. Looking nice. And I think I'm going to start bringing in some lines. Oh look, where'd the ant come from? So I have a break there, so I'm not going to paint through that break. I think it's cool. Just bring in some lines. Make it look natural. And while this is drying out quite nicely, so I'm going to take some Indanthrone Blue and purple some of that red, just a little bit. That's purpled nicely. And I'm going to continue that line. I don't want to come this way because there will be an explosion like that. There will be an explosion of paint, so I have to drag it this way and let the explosion be on this end. Probably should be using my smaller brush for this. And because this paint is still quite damp, I'm getting a blurring of line. That's great. And I'm going to put this right along the edge here. Okay. I'll come over here and get some of this Payne's Gray, have it ready because we will be using it in a minute. Now I'm going to get my brush damp, water in it, drying it off, adding a little bit of this Phthalo Blue, and I'm not going to touch the edge, but I'm going to be painting in, almost touching the edge, because this is damp, I don't want those colors to bleed up there. And I'm going to paint in just the top part where that peacock eye is. Rinsing my brush, still damp, and now I'm going to blur it back. Soften that edge. Okay, and now getting some neat Phthalo Blue and adding it right at the top, letting those colors paint the paper. I'm not painting it. And if your line is straight and you don't want that hard edge, just dampen your brush, clean it well, and then push the paints around a little bit. And I'm going to push my brush that way so I get a soft edge. And I want more intensity right on the edge. Okay. Let me use my smaller brush right now. So dry my brush, get some of that neat paint and put it right up there at the edge. And this is a line that's coming down, so I'm going to bring it down here a little bit too, as if this line continues. And maybe a little bit more intensity there. Okay, so we're going to put some red in there. Get some more red. Make sure your brush is really clean. And you grab some red and not touch the blue and put some red here. And while I'm still painting with a lighter color, not blue yet, I'm going to grab some of this new Gamboge, which is very bright, paint it just below, not touching the red yet, and now I'm going to push it into the red. And I've just brightened that area. And this is a line, and that's a line. I'll connect them and possibly make some other lines. Okay. Now I'm going to take my Indanthrone Blue and I'm going to come down along the edge and touch it into that, and as soon as I touch it into the red, it will turn black. And I'm wanting a little bit more red here, just so it's brighter, just at the top. Push those colors around a little bit. That's good enough. Okay, so I think this is pretty much dry. So yeah, it's pretty dry. So I'm going to add in my red line on top of this. And this one is not bleeding out, so it's more like a solid line, and it's softer a little bit underneath. So it's kind of cool. Don't worry, we're going to paint an orange glaze over the top to get our intensity of color in a minute. Okay, that will work. I'm going to put a little bit more intensity right on the edge, just at the top. Okay, so let's paint this area, and we're going to paint it Indanthrone Blue first, and then we will drop in some of the Payne's Gray. So, and that bottom part needs to be nice and clean and smooth. And now I'm going to come in and grab some of that Payne's Gray. Damp brush and blend out those colors so there's a transition there. Okay, and we're going to do the same with this area. I think this is dry enough. And I'm going to connect them now. And with my Indanthrone Blue, I'm going to connect them at the top. And grab in a little bit more and drop in those colors. Let them bleed together while they're still wet. Beautiful transition. And I want that outside to be quite dark, so I'm going to take the outside and make that a black line. We will be putting gold on top, so if you don't like your line, don't worry about it. And this is quite dry, but I'm going to touch it up now. Clean up that edge so it's nice and smooth if I want it smooth. If I want a little jagged part there, I can have that. Sometimes I'll bring in a little bit of black line. And I didn't paint that because I don't want only a line around the edge. This is kind of cool, this broken area, so I'm going to paint around that and make it, highlight it. Just an area that has a little bit of dark edge. And connect that. Need a little more moisture there. That might be too much. think I'll let the eye connect that part and not connect it myself. Add some lines. That's kind of cool. And I'm going to add some intensity right here also at the top. Not connect that, I'll let the eye connect it. And this, you can see a pencil mark. I'm going to put in touches of gold there later, and that will look really cool. So we are, I think, pretty much ready. Okay, so that wing is kind of done. So let's go to this one now. And my water is already dirty. I always have to clean my water just because I want the colors to be very fresh. Okay, so let's paint this wing now. We're going to follow the same procedure. We can't rush it. We have to paint slowly. Just because it's wet and wet, you have to time all of your moments when you add in other paint. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit. So we can't rush this process, but we can enjoy it. So this time, you know, you saw me accidentally put in these gaps here. I like those. So this time I'm not going to accidentally do it. I'm going to try to do that in a couple of places, just because it will add more interest to my final painting. It's better to use the smaller brush when you're painting like this, but the larger brush lays down the water faster. Much faster. So I'm getting my edge properly hydrated so that when I lay down the water, the colors will blend and bleed quite nicely. Okay, I have quite a bit of water down, so the colors might bleed a little more than on that side, but we'll see how that goes. Can't get it. Okay, there, you can kind of see that I have the water down. It's pretty good. So we have to start out with our Payne's Gray. I'm sorry, our raw sienna. And the raw sienna I'll put here first. I just want to see how that's moving. Look at that, nice. Love those colors. Oh, this is going to bleed up. That's great. And I think it has to do with, there's a slight buckle on my paper, and that's determining some of the flow of this color. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to let those colors hopefully not blend together totally. Okay, so let's get our reds ready. And our oranges. And dilute them a bit. And drop them in. And you can see that even though it's quite bright, it dries quite dully. So we can put in a fair amount, but we don't want to put in overpowering color because then we can't get the layers properly. So that's why I'm a little bit conservative with my color at first. That should be fine. Okay, so while that is drying, we can start working on the outside of this butterfly wing, and I am going to bring in some more of the raw sienna, and this time it's less diluted so I can have more impact of color. And I'm going to bring in, this time it's going to be neat. Neat means without water. Well, hardly any water. I'll drop in a little bit over here. Okay. We have our Indanthrone Blue diluted. It's quite watery. This is pretty damp right now, so I'm just going to wait a few seconds and then I'll start dropping in this color. Yeah, it's good. It'll bleed nicely. These colors are beautiful together. The Indanthrone Blue and the raw sienna. Really lovely. So this time I have neat, and I'll just touch in a little bit. If you want to use your finer brush on this, you can. I have a really nice point on this, so I can control it quite well. Okay, while that is drying, let's go ahead and start on our blue. So you can see I have small dilution, not touching this wet area, otherwise I'll have a disaster. So just painting around it. And I'm going to add in a little bit more neat color right here on the end. And this is when I need my finer brush. So try it. And I like this ragged edge. I'll just go with that. I think it's cool. So intensifying the color only at the top. And while that is drying, we can grab in some of our red. A little bit more diluted. Now the red dries quite dully, so we do want to put in pretty good concentration. So that's pretty good. Some lines for character. And before I mix in other colors, I'm going to mix in my new Gamboge. I'm going to start below it, mix in those colors, and then bring them up towards the red. And that's cool. I'll just brighten it. Let those colors merge. Now I'm going to take my Indanthrone Blue. It's rather concentrated. Make sure I have a point on my brush. This nice point there. And then I'm going to bring that line up, outlining. And I'm going to bring it into the red just a little bit, see what the colors do. That'll work. Wow, clean your brush, clean your brush. I want that bright blue right here. And I'm going to lift it now. It's good enough. Okay, intensify that red just a little bit while it's still wet. Okay, we have some color over here. Let us quickly take care of our, we'll need to purple this a little bit. I think we can do it right now. That works. And for me, it's red, it's damp enough so I still get kind of a fuzzy line, which is what I want. Okay, and we'll see how that bleeds out in a minute. So now we're going to add some the blue right here. Continue those lines and continue. So I'm going to get those darker in some areas. And then I will add my Payne's Gray as a final touch, a little bit on the outline, but not outlining everything again, like before. Okay, let's now do our area right here, and that is going to be with a diluted Indanthrone, 2 diluted If you put too much water down, then you can't control it, and it takes forever to dry, and you might have kind of weird lines. So this might even be too much water. We'll see in a minute. So I want a very concentrated Payne's gray in the lower part, and then it will diffuse as it goes up. And now I have my damp brush, and I'll just push that around so that it looks kind of cool. And I'm going to intensify this area right here. You know, I want this all the way to the red, so I'm going to change that. And that looks better. Okay. Why do I have ants here? So this is my Indanthrone Blue, and I'll just put that in there. Add some of the Payne's Gray to deepen it. And that's cool. Okay, so let's do our edging right here. And I'm going to start out with the Indanthrone Blue and then drop in my blacks. Or drop in the Payne's Gray at least. This is easy because I'm pulling the brush towards me. And again, we're going to be painting gold over this, so it doesn't have to be super intense. I do want that outer edge to be quite dark, just in this area. Okay, that is going to work. So let's intensify these colors because now they're dry. And then when we glaze over, we'll have a nice line that we can see through the glaze. So okay, that will work. Okay, it's time to paint our next butterfly wing. And I'm going to freshen my water again. Okay, I think we can paint these two wings at the same time. So I'm just going to go ahead and get them damp. Avoiding the eye and kind of this triangular area. I'll just paint everything else with water, get it ready for dropping in my colors. Okay, so let's go with our raw sienna first. So right along the edge, we'll drop in our raw sienna like before. I'm just going to go ahead and do both wings at the same time. Start up here. And now for my more concentrated raw sienna. Okay. And I realized that I painted this area, the black area, so I'm going to go ahead and do that with this side too, just for uniformity. Otherwise it might look a little odd. Close enough. Okay, so dropping in my reds. Dropping in some orange. And let's see where that goes. So let's put in some of our Payne's gray up here. I'm sorry, this is Indanthrone Blue. It's not traveling as much as I want, but we'll see how that goes. And I actually want it to travel more, so I'm getting this stain. Ooh, wash that out. Yes, okay. Getting it damp and very clean. And I'm going to push that pigment around just a little bit. I want more of a bleed there. And I'm going to bring some lines up. So mix in some Indanthrone with that raw sienna. Let's bring up some more. Trying to get some more intensity here. Oh, I see it's quite dry, so it doesn't want to travel much. Aha, that's okay. And all of these places where there's a line, I'm going to build up a little bit of color to that area. Okay, let's see if I can draw a line there. This is just water with a little bit of Indanthrone just to get that color diffused a little more. And I don't like this area, so I'm gonna try to lift a little bit, blur it. And blur some more. So I want to clean up this area right here. And right along the edge. And I think I can start adding in some lines. Okay, so that's still drying. I'm going to add in a little, because I have to take care of this before it gets too dry. Get some lines in there that look natural. And the same goes on this side. So I'm going to dilute some of this right here, and I'm going to connect these lines right here. The blue and the red. The blue and the red. And the same over here. And now to intensify these lines here that are pretty, yeah, that's good. And to intensify also, I'm going to take it this way because I don't want an explosion of paint, like maybe at the end there might be. Okay, so let's do our blue. And this time we're not going to put the red in, which, ooh, Just going to do the blue right here along the top. And I'm going to suggest that it comes around. More blue right at the top again. Intensify that. Soften that with a damp brush. And now we're going to put in our Indanthrone, which is really dark, right at the top. And we're going to mix in some of the Indanthrone here. And the Payne's Gray. Just at the bottom to get that intensity of color. And I'm also going to add some Payne's Gray right at the top also. We'll come over here and do the same thing with our blue just at the top. Bring that blue down, scoop it up just a little bit. Going to add really intense blue right at the top. Great color there. And I think we'll just blend this out just a little bit. That looks kind of good. Okay. So let's do the body, and then we'll glaze, and we'll pretty much be done. I know it doesn't look like it's done, but once we glaze, it will be really, really nice. So I'm going to outline a little bit more on the, get a little more intensity here. And get a little more here at the end. I'm just touching in some areas just for that pop of, contrast. let's get this really intense. Okay, now let's paint the body. And I'm just going to paint the body Indanthrone Blue first, and then drop in other colors. And my other colors are going to be the Payne's gray on the outside. And some champagne gold in the body. That needs to dry a little more before I can put more detail. And there's a little pincher-like thing at the front. So just going to paint that in very lightly. And this is really detail painting. Okay, that'll be good. I'm quite happy with this, and so this is pretty much dry. Let's glaze our butterfly. So we're going to need an orange, and that's pretty much all we need. Just make sure that your water is clean, and my water is not, so I'm going to have to change that because this has to be great. Okay, fresh water. We are ready for the glazing. And I'm going to start kind of watery just because I don't want to put too much color down first. So I'm only going to glaze between these lines. Now I'm going to take my brush, it's damp brush, and just push those colors back so I don't have any kind of hard lines. Push those colors back, and I think I want a little more color here. Uneven. Take that, push those colors back. If I have a little bit of red that goes in there, that's fine. And I'm just making sure that I don't have like globs of color because this is my top layer. Okay, that looks pretty good. Soften those edges a little bit. So let's do the same over here. Put this okay, take my brush, kind of push that around. Not too much because I don't want to lift the colors underneath, but that softens and brightens. So I'm going to do that for, this is dry, again, dry, and soften those edges. You know, I want this to come out a little more color there. Take that, and soften those edges. Take this and this is a damp brush and soften those edges. Okay, now I'm going to be intensifying a few colors, but that is pretty much how to paint this. So let's put in, this is red, and I'm going to purple that just a little bit. I want to have a little bit of an edge right here. And the same with right here. I would like a little bit darker bug body. And I'm going to intensify that just a little bit. And I did like that gold on it. That's kind of cool. So I'm going to do that again. Cool, cool, cool. And I'm going to do that also with these lines right here. Dropping in some gold there. Come down. Put some gold along the edge of that. And it's shimmery. You can see it from my angle. And bringing some gold in here. Shimmer. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can't see it. Anyway, I can see it when I'm moving mine. So now, while this is still a little bit damp, I'm going to use my very, very, very fine brush and just the tip of it because this gold spreads quite easily. So I'm going to get it on my brush and take a little bit of the excess off and drag it just along those lines, just on the tip. That means I get a very fine line. Same along here, along these smaller lines on the lower wing. just for some final touches, right along some of these dark lines, we're going to have some gold, and that will accent those dark lines. Okay, so I'm going to put in some of this white gold just here around this blue, just to accent that. It's a peacock after all, and it's a bright peacock. Now our stems, but before we do our stems, let's do some little pretty flowers. So I'm going to get some of this Quin Gold. I'll just put down . Going to blend in some new Gamboge, and this is our lemon yellow, so we'll just touch in a few of those spots. Using my very fine brush, just make some connections. Just accenting a few of them to make them look like they're in front. Just making it up as I go, so I need something over this way. So now that my background is painted, I'm realizing I need a little bit more contrast. So I'm going to cover up the gold on the body and darken it. And then for the antennas, you're wanting a creamy paint, and just with the very tip of your brush, just at the tip, drag that out just with the tip, and then at the very end, lay down your brush a little bit on the side, and you'll get that rounded bead on the end. And guys, we're down to the very last step, and that is to put in the 5 dots on each of the major wings on our butterfly. So a lot of the butterflies have these 5 dots. I don't know why, but we will be using our white echelene paint, or I guess it's ink, and we will put in those 5 dots and then we'll be done. If you enjoyed painting this, I have another butterfly that I did several months ago, and you can check that out. And if you really enjoyed painting this, I will be teaching acrylic and watercolor lessons hopefully in November. And so stay tuned. In the meantime, enjoy your day and happy painting.